Welcome to the Heavenly Treasury broadcast where we help believers achieve God's financial abundance for your life. Today we're going to continue with the series again, Money versus Wealth, part 4, which is 3 more parts than I thought it would be, and that's today about leaving a legacy. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, I'm struggling right now. I can barely pay my bills. I'm having a debt Christmas, something like that. You could be thinking that along those lines. Now, if you've watched this enough, so far you're going to have enough on increase and have the tools to be able to do that increase so that you will no longer be in that situation. And when you are very, very soon with the Lord and his financial flow for your life, you're going to be able to leave a legacy, which means abundance. Abundance means more than enough for you and everything you desire. Okay. It's more than enough for you. That means now you can leave a legacy. Okay. Now, as soon as everybody that we talk about in church wants to hear, about some topic, all right, whatever it is. It could be faith, it could be miracles, it could be divine healing and health, it could be wisdom, any of those topics in church. In my opinion, the most successful ministers that continue to have people congregate to their church and not only enjoy the message, but get something out of it, all right, are the ones who talk about a message that is tailored to benefiting them. It's not just about benefiting the kingdom. Now, we all want to be able to benefit the kingdom with all of our actions, all of our words, all of our fun, money, all of that stuff. All right, that's not lost on me. But the reality is this: human nature is very, very key. You have to understand human nature, especially if you're going to be successful in business. You're going to have to understand people better than your product or service, and that includes if you're in the ministry. I promise you that. The ministers that are continually growing and growing and growing are the best, not only with what the Lord has given them, with all that and their knowledge and wisdom of the Bible and their teachings, but also their skill with people. All right? Because if you're a ministry that takes in 8 figures a year, and there are plenty of them, there are plenty of ministries that take in 8, even 9 figures a year, you're going to have a lot of people on your staff. So you're going to have to do your ministry duties and have a great staff that's going to be able to support you in all the endeavors that God has called you to be. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk today about how leaving a legacy will benefit you. All right. Of course, it's going to benefit your descendants. It's going to benefit God, of course. And we talked about that with the children in the previous about money versus wealth, about how that benefits you. All right, and why we want to have that, and why we want to talk about money versus wealth with our children that we're going to have. All right. But when it comes to leaving a legacy, I'm also going to talk about how this benefits you. Of course, look, if you're a kid and your grandparents died and you got nothing from them, okay, I understand that. All right? Even if your parents just passed away and you got nothing from them financially, maybe they even left you with a burden where you had to go pay for their funeral expenses and you couldn't even afford that, so you had to get them cremated for a few $100. All right? Again, if you're in this position, you're probably thinking, okay, why should I do this? Why should I, as hard as I've worked, as hard as I've done for the Lord, as hard as I've done for the kingdom, why shouldn't I be able to benefit and do all that I want with all that I have and leave nothing? And if I can do it, then my kids can do it and my grandchildren can do it. Well, that's not quite what the Bible directs us to do. Okay? Now, again, it doesn't have to be, we're going to talk about how to do that and not have it break your bank today, but how you're able to do that today, starting today, to be able to build that future, not just for yourself, but also for your children. Because remember, you've had a hard life. A lot of you have, especially even when you're first starting out with the Lord. Because as soon as you really get on fire for the Lord, that's when the enemy attacks with his best shot to try to say, you want to work for the Lord? Guess what? You're going to have to deal with me. All right, and every single person that has gone high in the ministry, has gone high in business where they put their business wholeheartedly to serving the Lord and putting his kingdom first, every single one of those people have taken the enemy's best shot. They have, all right? And a lot of people folded at the very beginning. Some have not, and they've gone higher and higher, and now they're the ones who are at the top of the mountain saying, it's beautiful up here. I don't care what the enemy's doing to you. You're going to continue going, and you're going to continue pushing forward. Part of that has to do with leaving a legacy. Because if you're going to be on fire for the Lord and get into his financial flow, you're going to have an abundance. And that means you're going to be able to provide not just for yourself, but for your children and your grandchildren. Now, how do we do that? Why do we do that? Okay, I'm going to give you two big reasons why you should think about leaving a legacy beyond just getting, because again, we talked in part 2 about why you should have a spouse. We talked in part 3 about how money and wealth and why we should have children. Now in part 4, we're going to talk about how and why we leave a legacy and how it benefits you. The first way it benefits you is there is a blessing for obedience. When you go through this Bible, all right, and you read it word for word, all the way through, cover to cover, just every single day, or at least most days, at some point doing a regular Bible reading, not just in a group, but with yourself as well. All right, because you're going to get revelations from the Lord and through your spirit when you're reading the Bible by yourself. Because if you're in a group setting, again, not putting the group setting down, because as believers we're supposed to congregate with each other to build each other up. There's a difference between studying the Bible with the group and studying with the single, by yourself. Why? Because the Lord can speak to you in ways that maybe those other believers would block out. Because, maybe you're reading some book in the Bible, whatever it is, even if it's, Obadiah of all things. You're reading through Obadiah and all of a sudden you get a revelation, but guess what? A person in the group also gets a revelation. And guess who's going to talk? Probably the other person. And that's going to squash what you wanted to build in your spirit because you're focusing on them. That's why reading your Bible with yourself is so important, right? With just you and the Bible and the Lord. Okay? So with that being said, one of the things we really key on in this broadcast and in all of these series that we're doing is there's a blessing for obedience. And part of that blessing is finances. Part of it is the Lord knows the world that we live in. He knows that in order to bless you with stuff, it's going to require most of the times money. All right? And a lot, again, as we have desires and we fulfill those desires, and I've talked about this in previous broadcasts as well, that's going to require some sort of financial abundance. And so when we are doing what the Lord has called us to do, even if it's not even related to money, there is a blessing, monetary aspect to the blessing. There really is, okay? Now, it might be an indirect blessing. So, for example, if the doctor just told you have cancer right now, and you need a financial miracle to cover all the chemo and all the meds and all the doctor's treatments, now all of a sudden you head to a Holy Ghost meeting and you get healed. That's also not only is that a healing miracle, that's also a financial miracle because you're no longer paying thousands for all those doctor's visits. Okay, so and again, that blessing could be an indirect financial. That's why we focus that on here. Again, it's not everything, but it's part of that. And again, one of the big reasons why I do this broadcast is to help get you the help that the Bible has for you and to put you in a position where God can bless you, where you do the things that the Lord wants, and then the Lord will rain his blessing down on you. That's what I want for you. And that's the purpose of this broadcast. And that's why I'm doing this. So you can put yourself in a position for the Lord to bless you with his financial abundance that he has called you to have, okay? So, first benefit to you to leaving a legacy is a blessing for obedience, okay? And so a couple of things I want to point out when it comes to leaving a legacy is this. The first is your children and why you should biblically bless your children. And there is a scripture on that. And here it is. It is going to be 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14. And it's highlighted right here. This is Paul talking to the Corinthian church. See, I am ready to come to you for the third time, and I shall not be a burden to you, for I do not seek yours, but you. For the children should not lay up for their parents, but the parents for their children. So that is a command for us to bless our children. It is. Now, a lot of you are doing that right now because we got 4 days to Christmas. If putting the pagan stuff aside, most Christians are going to bless their children on Christmas. Even if you say, I'm not doing the Christmas tree, I'm not doing Santa, I'm not doing any of that stuff, you're still going to bless your children during this end time season. End of the year season, I should say. End time's very different discussion. All right, but that's one of the big reasons why. All right, so we're going to bless our children because the Bible tells us that we should. And when you bless your children, God loves seeing that you bless your children. Why? It's in his word to bless your children. Lay up. That means lay up things for your children, okay? And that means more than just finances, but here we're going to focus on the financial aspect. Now, we'll get to other non-financial aspects towards the end, but that's what we want to focus on here, okay? And then on top of that, there's another commandment for leaving a legacy, and it's this. It's one you've probably heard many, many times. I'm just going to repeat it for those of you who haven't. Proverbs 13, verse 22. And it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. King Solomon talking here. All right, so it's not just for your children you lay up, it's also for your children's children. So again, those are commandments that we are supposed to follow as believers. Now, it should be in our spirit. Once we get in our spirit to follow the Lord wholeheartedly, you're going to have a desire to do this. You are. But the reason why I put this in here and talk about this is that when you do this and say, okay, Lord, I am yours. I've read your word. I'm following your commandments. Thank you for the blessing of obedience. Thank you for the blessing of obedience in Jesus' name. Okay? And then watch what happens to the Lord. When you have a desire to do this, you'll have a desire to do other stuff, which is how the Lord can say, hey, you know what? Here's somebody I can use. This is somebody I can really use mightily for my kingdom. That's really what this is going to do. Laying up and how it benefits you in the Lord's eyes. Because you're blessing your children and you're blessing your children's children. That's why. All right, so that blessing for obedience is something that the Lord can say, hey, I can trust you to go higher and to increase and to have more finances because you're doing what I want you to do. All right, and of course, you want to do it too. Don't get me wrong. This is not to say, I'm only going to do this to help me. Yes, you're going to do this to help your children and your children's children because they're your flesh and blood. They relate to you better than anybody else on planet Earth could. But in terms of benefiting you and your life and your walk with the Lord, it's the blessing for obedience. And then the second reason is this. If your kids surpass you, you get the benefit. Let me say that again. If your kids surpass you, you get a benefit. Why? If they pass you financially, who are they going to thank for getting them where they are besides God? Two wonderful parents. Two wonderful parents. And where is that biblically? It's in the 10 commandments. We're not going to show it right here. But first of all, it's the 5th commandment, which is honor thy father and thy mother. Honor thy father and thy mother, and the Lord will let you live good in the land he's giving you. Okay? So when they live a great life in the land that they have, they're going to honor their father and mother because it's part of their walk with life. It's the 10 commandments. It's very, very clear. All right, Jesus talked about it a lot too. So it's not just Old Testament. We just forget about it. Jesus talked about it too. Honor thy father, thy mother. And what does honor mean? Dollars. Honor means dollars. It does. Or some sort of finance. It does. Okay. Yes, you can honor them with your words. You can honor them by calling them. You can honor all of that. But when it comes to honor, it's always going to mean dollars as well. Because look, how many of you have been at an organization for a very long time? A lot. I'm talking like a decade or 2 decades, something like that. And then they get up to you and they say, well, thank you so much for your service for our organization. And you've been key to their growth. And you've been key to this organization's growth. And all they do is say, we have a nice trophy for you. We have a nice award. Here you go. And it's got your name on it with some, commitment award. And they give it to you and they applause. And they say, thank you for your service. And that's all they do. And you say a couple words about how great the people are, how great the organization's been, and then you go back to your seat. Is that really honor? I mean, seriously, how much effort does it take to to buy a $5 plastic award, put your name on it, and let you have 2 minutes in the spotlight? Is that really honor? Think about that. No, that's not honor whatsoever. Or let's say you put 30 years or 35 years into your organization. And now it's time for you to move on to greener pastures and move on to some other step in your life. And they get you up and they do the same thing. They say, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your commitment. Here's, $25 to Applebee's. Is that really honor? No, it's not, because you have been instrumental to that organization and that growth of that organization. They should be blessing you. They should see your financial benefit and they should bless you. That's honor. So when your children achieve more than you possibly could, and that should be the goal for your children. You've probably never heard this in church or any other Bible or anything like this at all. But your children should surpass you. They should. They should surpass you in every way. Why? Because that's how we leave a legacy. We fight battles as parents that our children should never have to know. And they start at such a further along in the race than they would have without you. That means all the potholes, all the traps, all the disgusting stuff that you've gone through, they'll never have to go through it. That means they're starting further ahead. They're starting further ahead with financial, with wisdom, with the Lord speaking to them, all of that. Why? Because you taught them. You taught them. Okay? And so when they surpass you and they achieve something that you could not achieve by yourself, and they surpass you in all that they do, who are they going to thank when that looks back on them? And they're reading their Bible and the Lord speaks to them saying, honor your father and mother. What are they going to do? They're going to honor you. They're going to bless you. Okay? That's how it benefits you. And then on top of that, there's the second commandment where it says, I will bless those who love me to 1,000 generations. 1,000 generations of those who love me and obey me. 1,000 generations. So it's going to bless your first generation, which is your children. Your second generation, your children's children. All right? So when they get that blessing because you chose to obey the Lord, you said, this junk is stopping with me. All right? I've had 5 generations of men who have cheated on their wives, not me. I've had 4 generations of moms who are alcoholics, not me. Not me. I'm stopping it right now, and we're going forward in a different path. And we're leaving that behind. Guess what happens? Your children are the first people who will never know alcohol. Your children are going to be the first people who don't know teen pregnancy. That's what happens when you're at the Lord. And when they don't have to go through that, they can focus on other things that rise them higher. And guess who they're going to thank for not having to go through what you went through? You. And that means honor. That means dollars. That means assistance. That means love. All of that stuff that comes with the blessing of children. All right? Blessing of children. That's how it benefits you. It does. So those are the 2 big keys about how leaving a legacy can benefit you. All right? First is the blessing for obedience. And second is when your kids surpass you, you get the benefit. Okay? So that should be your goal as a parent, is for your kids to surpass you in every single way. That means physical. That means spiritual. That means financial. Your children should grow up, and when they leave the house, they should hear from the Lord clearer than you should. They should. And they should see miracles in their life before they leave the house. And they should know what the Lord has for them before they leave the house. They should. So that should be your goal. And when you do that, your children will surpass you. They will. And who are they going to thank? And by thanking, I don't mean just words. I don't mean a broke Christmas card once a year or a birthday card that says, thank you, Dad. I'm talking about honor. Honor means dollars. And that's going to mean a more abundant life for you, especially in the latter years. Especially in the latter years. All right? So those are 2 ways that leaving a legacy can benefit you. Again, I'm focusing on that because I understand human nature. I understand most people, when they hear a message, no matter what it could be a sales presentation. It could be buying a home. It could be Sunday sermon in church. They're always thinking about, how can this benefit me? Because most people are inherently selfish. They are. They want to be able to benefit themselves. They do. And so when you focus your message on that, you're going to get the benefit of helping other people when you do the thing that you want them to do, but they're also going to benefit themselves. Okay? So again, that's why, think about I don't know why I keep focusing on the ministry today, but when you think about all the ministers who have great big offerings, think about what they do beyond their personal and ministerial seed time and harvest and their sowing. Beyond that, every single one of them talk about how the offerings and the tithe benefit you. It doesn't talk about how it can benefit them. It doesn't talk about how they need a new roof and it's $40,000 and they need it to come in today or we're going to have to move to another place. They don't talk about that. No matter what's going on financially, they could have a negative bank account. But despite all of that, they're still going to talk about how the tithe and the offering benefit you. That's the big difference between the ministers who have $1 million offerings versus the ministers who have $1,000 offerings. That's the big difference, okay? Again, putting their knowledge of the word aside and their seed time and harvest aside. Two ministers being identical, and the only difference being one person talks about how the offering benefits the church, the other person talks about how the offering benefits you. The one who talks about the offering benefiting you will have planets ahead offerings than the one who doesn't. That's why we talk about this, okay? And you have to understand that, and especially if you're in business right now. Understand, people are inherently selfish. They want to, not only do they want to know how your product and service benefits them, when you're talking to them, they want to talk about themselves. They don't want to talk about you. They want to talk about themselves, okay? Again, that's why we talk about this, because it's human nature, all right? Don't put people down because they want to talk about themselves. It's natural. They want to, because most people will never hear somebody let them talk about themselves. That's why we talk about how leaving a legacy can benefit you, so you can start right now on taking steps to be able to do that. And we'll show you those steps very, very shortly. But before we do, I want to show you this. I want to show you two phenomenal examples. I mean, world-class levels of leaving a legacy. So there's two examples that I want to show you. The first is the Koshu. I hope I'm getting this name right. It's a Japanese inn. Okay, it's called the Koshu Nishiyama Hot Springs Inn. So we're gonna take a look at this right here. Look at that, 1,300 years, 1,300 years of history. The world's longest standing hot springs inn. 1,300 years. Think about all the stuff that even if you know nothing about Japan's history. Now, they've been around for a very long time. They have, as a country and as a nation, and they have fantastic nation. All right. Wonderful people, great culture. But 1,300 years of all the civil wars, all the world wars, all the economic depressions, all the black plagues and the COVIDs, all of that stuff, they have stayed open for 1,300 years. And here's what's even more impressive. Look at this. All right, now I can't confirm this, all right, but let me just zoom in so you can read this even better. Okay? Look at this right here. Now again, this is a website. I just pulled it up, but just think about this. This storied, whatever that is, ryokan, has been continuously maintained by the same family for 52 generations. 52 generations. My goodness. Okay? I mean, yes, part of those 52 generations, some were adopted in, but within a family, a 52 generation family owned business. Are you kidding me? 1,300 years. That's world class. That's biblical. It really is. I mean, most people can't even pass on a business to their next generation. Most people can't even pass on a house to their next generation because the three kids, all they're doing is fighting because they've got nothing, right? Because their parents didn't teach them anything, and now the only thing that's left is, a house and a few bucks in the bank account. Yeah, they can split the bank account up in thirds, but who gets the house? Right? One person's fighting over the water heater, the other person's fighting over the roof, the other person's fighting over the furniture, and it's in court, it's a mess, and by the time the whole thing's done, 3 years after that, half the money's gone to lawyers, and the other half is not even enough to last 6 months with all the money they want to spend, with all the vacations they want to take and all that. It's gone in 6 months. I mean, think about that for a second. 52 generations. That is so, I can't even my mind can't even wrap my head around that. Just think about that. My mind can't even wrap my head. 52 generations of a family-owned business. That's absurd. That is so world class. So world class. Beyond that, okay? And the next example I found was a castle in Germany, okay? It's called the Eltz Family Castle, okay? This castle has been around, as you can see right here, for 900 years. Our family has been living in this castle situated between Eifel, Moselle, and Rhine for 900 years. 900 years, our family. So that's 900 years, all right? Not quite 1,300 yet, but 900 is a pretty long time. Very long time, right? If the average person lives to 90, that's 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 10 times. All right? A lot of years, okay? And when I was looking back at this history, this was a castle that was dealt to the Eltz family back when Frederick Barbarossa was doing a crusade. Okay, Frederick Barbarossa was doing a crusade and gifted this castle. I believe, again, I don't want to put words in these people's mouths, but from what I can read, it was gifted to them as some sort of reward of some sort. But think about that, 900 years. This castle, all right, look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely so beautiful. All right. I mean, look at that. Wouldn't you like to stay in there for a week? Think about how beautiful that is. A nice getaway, a castle all to yourself. Beautiful. All right. Hats off to these people. All right. Fantastic. So those are two very, very nice examples of leaving a legacy. Now I hope that gets your wheels turning about what you can do today. I mean, I'm already getting my wheels turned, and I'm not even watching this. I mean, if that doesn't get your vision going forward, I don't know what will. I really don't. Okay. And think about this: 52 generations is. I mean, the Bible promised you 1,000 generations. That's 52, and that's 1,300 years. Think about how long 52 generations were, and now 1,000 generations to those who love me. My goodness, if that doesn't get your vision going, I don't know what will, okay? But, all right, so now that we've got the vision, now let's talk about the mechanics. How do we do that? The first is to leave wisdom. Wisdom, okay? That means teaching your children about the Bible. And we talked about that extensively when it comes to money versus wealth in the previous part 3, when I talked about the game of Monopoly and how we can be conquerors and with our money and our wealth. Okay? And again, how wealth can yield power, which yields a better life for your children. Okay? So that's the first one. And I want to give a brief scripture on this from the Bible. All right? It's King David in 1 Chronicles 28, verses 5 and 6 right here. So this is King David talking at the end of his life. And of all my sons, for God has given me many sons, he has chosen my son Shalomo, which is King Solomon, to sit on the throne of the reign of God over Israel, and said to me, Solomon, your son, is the one to build my house and my courtyards, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I myself am a father to him. Why is this important? Because he's giving direction to his wealth. Right? He's not just leaving a pile of money. Because remember, King David had a great desire to build the temple of God. He had a great desire to build it, but guess what? He was commanded by God, no, you're not going to build it. Your son, King Solomon, is going to build it. You just gather the resources. And he gathered the resources. And he left a large pile of money with a very specific purpose. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. So you got to teach your kids how to love God. You got to teach your kids how to honor God. You got to show them the miracles, not only in your life, but in their life. Because by the time they leave your house, they should at least see some miracles. They should. That they know there's no possible way this could have happened without God. No possible way this could have happened without God. So that's the first thing. That means if you're not doing it yourself, you got to start. You got to start. And then when you start seeing stuff, then you can start showing your children. Now, I started teaching my kids to read the Bible when they were 2. Now, some of your children right now, they could be 10, 12, 14. It's never too late to start reading the Bible. It's never too start to showing them how to pray. It's never too late to start showing them miracles in your life. It is. All right. Once they get that age, they need to start knowing what it's going to be like when they're out on their own and how the Lord can protect them in everything they do, including financial, and also how the Lord is going to bless them financially when they do what they're supposed to be doing. Okay. So that's the first thing, is that leaving the wisdom. The second thing, of course, is the wealth. All right. And so that's why it's important for you to become a master now. All right. We talk about that in one of my first broadcasts about, I think it's Reignite Your Dreams Part 3. And that talks about how to become a master in the marketplace and why we choose to become a master. Now, I want to harp on this. Every single person has a unique path with God. Every single one of them has a very unique path with the Lord. They do. Okay? So that means your children have a different path than you do. Your grandchildren have a different path than your children. They all do. That means they have to know the path that they have for them before they leave the house. All right. So how do we do that? Why is that important? Because the business that you start, the business that you're in, for whatever reason, that doesn't have to be your children's business. It doesn't. Now, it would be nice for you to have a 52 generation business. All right, if you have enough children and you instill enough value in the family name, to continue that, then yes, you can do that. And that should be your goal. But if you do fall short, all is not lost. All is not lost, and it's not in vain. Here's why. According to businessweek.com, less than half of all family-owned businesses are successfully past the second generation. Less than half. That should put 52 generations and 13 generations for the Eltz family in perspective. Just think about that. That's how difficult it is to be able to pass it down. But here's the kicker. Half of all entrepreneurs grew up in a family business. Half. So even if you start a business and it's not as successful as you want it to be when you go to heaven, all right, and for whatever reason that is, all right, for whatever reason, your business, your ministry, whatever it is, it's not as big as you wanted it to be when you went to heaven. Guess what? Your children still saw what you did. Your children still saw you making sales calls. They still saw you managing employees, meeting payroll, talking to accountants. They saw you doing all that stuff. So they're familiar with that. You maybe had to learn the hard way. You had to learn through the school of hard knocks. Guess what? Your children don't have to do that. And that's wealth. That's wealth that you're going to leave them, because a money-producing endeavor is wealth. Even if they don't have it right away when they leave the house, guess what? They have all of the mechanics to be able to do that. So they don't have to learn firsthand about taxes and accounting and sales and marketing and product development and processes. They don't have to learn all about that because they saw you do it. That's wealth. It really is. Because once they have that idea from the Lord, guess what? Now they've just kickstarted it, and you have given them wealth. That is a legacy. It is. That is a legacy. And that's very, very important, which is another reason why we should be becoming financial masters in the marketplace. And then the third is, of course, money. Now, again, the wealth is a money-producing object, okay? It's a money-producing object either because it gains value or because it produces cash. One of those two. That's what makes a wealth a money generation vehicle. It either increases in value or it produces cash. Now, again, not every business is profitable. Not every business is profitable, but yet the owners become very, very wealthy. Why? Because if you're in a business and let's say you have a patent, right? And you have a good patent that's a phenomenal idea that nobody's thought of yet. And the whole reason why you start your business is not to sell the product and service that you have, but to show the utility of your patent. Guess what? You may be losing money a lot of times. You may be having a lot of investors keep pouring cash into your business. Even as you're growing in revenue, you're still losing cash every single year. Guess what? The purpose of that endeavor was not to produce cash. The goal of that endeavor was to produce enough exposure to your patent that somebody buys you out. And all of those losses you've taken over the past few years get instantly healed and profitable in an instant. Okay? Think about this. When Uber went, again, putting the ridiculousness of all those money-losing companies going public at the end of 2020, 2021, 2019, all that stuff. Putting that aside, Uber itself was not profitable when it went public. It was not profitable when it went public. Their whole goal was to produce the concept to be able to have it public so other investors could buy them out when they went public. All right. So if you have a good idea, again, I'm not saying this should be the goal, but if you are in a position where you have a great idea and maybe you have a business and this product or service that you have isn't really selling very well, maybe you need to refocus and think, okay, I have a really good patent on this information, on this IP, on this product or service. Let me see how I can market and expose that patent to the rest of the world and to some other buyer who will then buy out my patent and my idea, because that's how we can be able to improve somebody's business. All right, because if you're thinking about this from the other perspective, from the business who's going to buy out that patent, maybe it would take $10-20 million over 3 years of R&D to be able to come up with some solution, or they could pay you $5 to $10 million right now and just save all of that. It's cheaper for them to be able to buy you out than it is for them to develop it themselves. That's what I want to throw out there, and that's money. That's money, okay? And when you do that, you're going to have a lot of money, okay? With that being said, all right? But refocusing on the legacy aspect here, okay? You don't have to think, okay, if I want my children to have $1 million, or some sort of 7-figure inheritance after I pass, you don't have to just, put money aside in a savings account and just hope it's there when you pass. You don't have to do that. All right? Just think about this. When you leave money for your children, they're going to be able to do things and have more influence than you possibly ever could. Because that puts them ahead of the game with the wisdom you've given them and the business skills. Now they're on a roll. Now they have the capital for their first business that you would never have been able to achieve. All right. And again, once they have that business churning and it's producing and they're going higher and higher and higher, who are they going to honor? You. Because you're the one who gifted it them. You're the one who gifted it to them. Okay? So, there are a lot of options for you to be able to leave a legacy that don't include you saving $2 to $3 million in cash by the time you pass away. They don't have that. Again, this is not a marketing call or a broadcast or anything like that, but my wife and I have accounts on all of our children, okay? We're not putting a ton of money in there, but we don't have to contribute every single month for the rest of our life, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. If that, let it grow till they're 80 or 90, and once they pass away, our grandchildren who aren't born yet are already millionaires. That's possible. Okay, it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. You can partner that little savings you have now, and it can compound and compound and compound. And by the time you pass away, guess what? Now they have good money to be able to do things that you couldn't do on your own. Okay, so it doesn't have to be super expensive. Okay, even if you have, let's say you have $20,000 right now, and you say, okay, I'm going to leave this to my children. You could put that in a vehicle right now that it'll grow every single year, completely tax-free, and then give it to your children once you pass away. And that money would likely grow into the million, if not millions, by the time you live that long, prosperous life that the Lord has for you. So there are options out there that you don't have to just focus on putting a lot of money in a savings account and just hoping it's there for 70 years from now. You don't have to do that. All right? There are other options for you to leave money beyond just the wealth and the wisdom. Okay? So that's what I really want to focus on today, is that there are options for you and things that you can do today, which we just described: wisdom, wealth, and money, to be able to leave a legacy. And leaving a legacy, remember, is a blessing for obedience. That's what I want to leave you with. There's a blessing for obedience. Okay? There's a blessing for obedience. Just remember that everything in the Bible that the Lord has for you, and why Christianity is so much better than every other religion, why Yahweh El Shaddai is so much better than any other God out there, is because He is the one who blesses you for obedience. He doesn't strike you down if you don't obey. Now, that may have been true in the Old Covenant, because when the Israelites were going through the desert and they complained, God killed some of them. He did. He set fire to their camp, and a lot of people died. He doesn't do that anymore. Okay? Now, there are things, even in the New Testament, where if you do that, God will get very, very angry and do things that maybe you don't think God should or would be able to do, even under the New Covenant. But there are, all right? Ananias and Sapphira, key example. But putting that aside, okay, this is a God that you serve that is so, so great that He will bless you for honoring Him. He will bless you for obeying Him. He will bless you, okay? So that's why I harp on this so much, is that when we do what the Lord asks us to do, especially when it comes to our money, there is a massive, massive blessing and reward for obedience. That's what I want to leave you with, okay? And so leaving a legacy is part of that, is part of being that obedience. And I showed you today how you can do that starting today to be able to get that legacy going. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will talk to you after Christmas. Take care, everybody.